Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Refinishing Furniture. My name is Monica and I am the founder and creator of Jersey Vintage. This week's video is part one of a dresser and nightstands that I will be refinishing to sell at Rust and Grain. Rust and Grain is a local vintage shop here in Maryland that I've been selling out of for the past 5 months. Now, I found this dresser on Facebook Marketplace back in September, and I want to say I paid $25 for this set, but I'm going to have to check in my history of purchases on Marketplace. As always, I'm going to start off by removing the hardware and these pieces that were attached to the front of the doors. I still don't know if I'm going to be using them or reattaching them back to the dresser, so stay tuned to see what I end up doing. I vacuum and clean the entire piece using crud cutter, and please don't mind my heavy coat while I'm refinishing furniture. It is currently 30 degrees here, and refinishing furniture in this type of weather is no joke. I would much rather be sweating and in the heat than to be refinishing furniture in cold weather. At this point, I started scuff sanding the entire piece using my orbital sander and 180 grit sandpaper, but I still wasn't sure what I was gonna do. Next, I decided to sand down to bare wood and see the condition of the top. But unfortunately, I found that it had a pretty dark stain that was just too deep into the grain, and unfortunately, like many vintage mid-century pieces, this top had a thin veneer, which I would probably end up ruining if I continue sanding down. And yes, I guess I could have used an acid to try to remove the stain, but I am trying to stay away from harsh chemicals as much as possible. So finally, I had a clear idea as to what I wanted to do with this piece. As you guys know, I love leaving some parts of the furniture with a natural finish, so I will be removing the finish on certain areas, and then I will be doing a light paint wash. I am using my favorite finish remover by Stripwell, which I will be linking in the description box below. I had someone ask me why I like doing this paint in natural finish combination, and sometimes I just feel like painting the piece one color all over takes away from the character of the piece. Now, this thought or point of view does not include stained furniture. I truly do love stained furniture. But the reason why it doesn't include stained furniture is because you can still see the beautiful wood grain through the stain, which is an individual characteristic of that piece. Next, I went ahead and sanded down the drawers just to make sure that I have a smooth surface to apply my paint wash. I went ahead and covered all the areas that were going to get a paint wash so I could start priming the rest of the dresser. Now, I am very excited because Dixie Belle is sponsoring this furniture flip. They reached out to me and were very kind to send me a package with lots of goodies. I had used their paint in the past, but this is my first time using their primer and top coat. So I'm really excited to see what this primer is all about. I poured the primer on a salad plastic container. That's what I always do. I reuse my salad containers. And I was very pleased to find that it has a very thick consistency, which is definitely something I like in a primer. Now, I was a little worried because I have the nightstands to finish along with this dresser, and I didn't think I would have enough product, but it turns out that this primer is full coverage and I only had to do one coat. I will be using the color Sandbar and the regular chalk mineral paint line, and to apply my paint, I am using their synthetic mini brush. No surprise here at all. Like I said, I have used Dixie Belle paint in the past and I knew exactly what to expect. Now, if you're new at refinishing furniture, you will find out quickly that some paints are thicker than others, and Dixie Belle in particular has a thicker consistency, which allows you to use a very small amount of paint and still get full coverage. I like to use a misting bottle to add a little bit of water to either my brush or directly on the piece. And for the viewer who asked why I do this, it's because in my personal style of painting furniture, I don't like textured or paint strokes on any of my finished pieces. So the water serves two purposes. It allows for the paint to thin out and it takes a little bit longer to dry, which in turn gives it more time to self-level. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and start paint washing the drawers. Okay, so for this, I ended up using 1 part paint to 10 parts water. Okay, this is typically the recommended mixture that you need for paint washing. As you can see, it's super watery, and I will be using my mini brush to apply it, and then I'm gonna be wiping back with you can use a paper towel, you can use a lint-free cloth, whatever you have handy. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I let the paint wash sit for about 5 minutes on each one of the pieces before wiping back. Now, don't panic if after you wipe back you notice that the piece is still orange or it has too warm tones. Once it dries, all these orange tones and warm tones are actually going to be canceled out. And talking about panicking, I want you guys to take a quick look at what happened the next day. Rico, the youngest one of my dogs, decided to chew up the corners of this drawer. He's never done that in the past, and I think he's just having a lot of separation anxiety because his partner and brother passed away unexpectedly on December 7th, and I don't blame him. I was at first a little angry at him, but then I realized he's never done this before, so he must be grieving and just feeling anxiety because he stays by himself now. I went ahead and patched both sides, and then I decided to just paint over them and come up with a different plan, which you'll see in the next few clips. So I went ahead and used the same color, and I did one super light coat of paint in all the areas that I had paint washed because I decided to do a faux natural finish instead. Also, if it isn't very obvious, I am pregnant, which is why you haven't seen me on here very often. I am now in my 2nd trimester and feeling somewhat back to normal. Also, if you hear that I am out of breath, it's because of that. This is my first baby and I am experiencing things for the very first time. So yeah, I had severe morning sickness during my 1st trimester. So it was pretty much impossible to get any furniture flipping done. However, I did get a few pieces out to bring to the shop, but I did not film or edit any of the process for those pieces. I went ahead and used a gel stain to recreate the same wood grain. This is a very trendy paint style to mimic the Sausalito dresser from Pottery Barn, which I've been very hesitant to try because I've seen what it looks like in person, which is not good, and what it looks like in pictures, and it's very deceiving. The trick for me to make it look as natural as possible is to leave a rough wood grain so the gel stain stays in the cracks after you wipe back. Now, I've seen people use different types of brushes and cloth and sponges to apply their gel stain. And for me, I noticed that using a sponge just gives me a more even coverage. But you definitely don't have to use a sponge. I just like to use these because they're super cheap. You can get them at the Dollar Tree for like $1.25, and you can just toss them after you're done working with them. You don't have to rinse them because they're not super expensive that you want to keep reusing them. Last but not least, I went ahead and sealed my piece using gator hide and a sponge applicator from Dixie Belle. Now, this is another awesome product which I had heard from other furniture flippers, like Furniture Flipping Teacher. She talks about this all the time and she says she really likes it. Now, I had not had a chance to use it until now, but so far I like the consistency. I like how thick it is. One thing I will say, if you are using a sponge applicator to apply this top coat, just make sure that your sponge is damp before you put it into the top coat. And this is just going to allow you to glide a little bit better over the furniture without causing it to get tacky. Big shout out to my husband, who has taken on a lot of the heavy lifting for me because I am pregnant. Here he's just helping me take off the legs so that I can spray paint them and make them match with the hardware that I ended up buying. So this is all the hardware that I am going to have to match with the same spray paint. The back legs were wooden, which is kind of weird, and then the front ones were this metal color. Here is the rest of the hardware, and I'm just going to spray paint them to make them look cohesive and just to make them look like they were part of the same set. So this is it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, don't forget to put them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like the video, and I will see you guys next week for another furniture flip. Bye-bye.